Good afternoon. My name is Mike Bucci. I'm an entrepreneur, inventor, small business owner, and most recently an author located right here in Redcoat County, Virginia. Before I share my story, I'd like to thank Governor McDonald and Secretary Payne for hosting this wonderful event. Most of all, I'd like to thank you, the small business owners in Virginia who've taken time out of your extremely busy schedules to take part in this event. Fully recognizing that your time is one of the most precious assets that you have. It's really something to see so many people here to listen and to be heard. There are more than a few pressures on small business owners these days. Beyond the usual challenges of building and growing our businesses, we face tremendous uncertainty driven by customers who are and may permanently have changed their spending behaviors. Additionally, we're facing meaningful government-influenced changes to our cost structures and significant constraints in capital markets. As if this were not enough, every economist and media person in a nation is saying that our country is depending upon us to turn around the U.S. economy. So no pressure, folks. For me, the dream of owning my own business was just that, a dream, for a large portion of my life. My move into entrepreneurship was a combination of forces hitting me all at once. Not to say there's a normal way that somebody becomes an entrepreneur, but for me, it started with bookshelves. You know, those things that you put books on. The year was 2006, and my wife had convinced me that we needed new built-in bookshelves in our family room. With 2 young children, there was an ever-increasing array of toys, learning equipment, diaper changing, and every other thing that you could think of that had occupied our home. So I agreed with my wife, as I learned over the previous 10 years of marriage was generally the smart thing to do, and I started to look into getting her some bookshelves. For many of us now, it may seem like 1,000 years ago, but 2006 was when every building contractor, construction person, and every craftsman was charging top dollar for their time. So the quotes that I received for my bookshelves could nicely be described as expensive. I considered them fairly ridiculous. So having some of my own home improvement skills, I decided I was going to go out and purchase some unfinished bookshelves, paint them myself, and it would be an easy thing to just go ahead and install them. All I needed to do was slap a couple coats of primer, a couple coats of paint, and I would be good to go. I quickly found that it was easy to get that first coat of primer and paint on these bookshelves. But given the fact that Virginia has 90+% humidity in April, the paint never dries. So literally, it was taking me a half an hour to put on a coat of paint, and it would take me 1 or 2 days of waiting for the paint to dry. I see some people nodding their head. I've tried to paint in Virginia in April. So then what I had to do is, I'd get that first, wait a couple days for it to dry, flip it over, and paint the other side, and then I had to wait again. This process took a long time, and needless to say, it was fairly torturous for me. Undaunted, I went to multiple paint, hardware, and home improvement stores and asked them for a product that would simply allow me to paint something and flip it right over and paint the other side. Invariably, every salesperson I spoke with looked at me like I was clinically insane. Still not discouraged, I went home and I decided to actually make some of my own little pyramids. I actually cut them out of a piece of wood, and they worked. And so I was able to finish my project in a relatively quick time after that. But as I thought about it, I thought that I might be onto something. And there's a reason why people say it's about as much fun as watching it dry, because it's really not any fun watching it dry, let's be honest. And so I started investigating the opportunity to patent my idea. And later that fall, I applied for my patent. That's when life got a little crazy for me. Just a few weeks later, my employer, who had been faced with a lot of the financial strains that had hit the financial services industry, decided they were going to eliminate my entire department. And while for some the potential of being laid off is a terrifying event, For me, I'd actually been through it before. So I actually found myself almost a little numb to the idea. And that numbness told me I needed to make a change. And in all of this, I saw an opportunity. My employer took exceptional care of their employees with severance packages. They also allowed people to take on temporary roles in the company that they could stay in while they were searching for permanent employment. So I spent about 5 months working in a temporary role while spending nights and weekends developing my product and preparing for my product launch. And in May of 2007, I launched the Painter's Pyramid, a product like that one, like the one on your tables, at the National Hardware Show. The product received a great response, so I decided to stop my temporary role and move into my business full-time. Now, I was confident this was going to be easy. I had a severance package. I had a really great product tied to the booming home improvement industry. What could go wrong, right? And let's face it, this small business thing was going to be easy because I'm a big business guy. So, and over the first year, actually, things did go really well, with multiple retailers picking up on our Painter's Pyramid. And one of the leading names of paint supplies entering into an agreement with me to sell my product to some of the largest names in the home improvement industry. Along the way, though, I was also starting to learn a few lessons about small business, including the challenges of growing a business in a cash-constrained world, and dealing with challenges associated with personnel, like payroll, health insurance, benefits, retirement planning, and a dozen other items that you have to manage when you have employees. These were a few upfront indications that this small business thing might not be as easy as I first thought. Then 2009 hit, and it hit hard. This was the time when consumers really started to change their behaviors, significantly cutting back on their discretionary spending. In turn, the retailers that I was selling to panicked. All retailers panicked. They pulled back on inventories and only replenished when necessary. And the impact on manufacturers like me was silence. And it's not the good silence. It was the silence of the fax machine that the orders usually show up on. So my revenue grinded to a halt. While all of this was happening, our elected officials in Washington, D.C. were pushing radical changes to our healthcare system, environmental regulations, financial regulations, and labor laws. None of these was going in a direction that was going to be beneficial for my business or business in general. So there I was, owning a fledgling business that was not generating revenue in an economy where jobs were disappearing everywhere, with political leadership whose agenda was not going to improve my situation. I went through all of the expected emotions, including self-doubt, anger, fear, and on more than one occasion, reminisced about how nice it was to work for a big company. I'm probably not the only person in this room who experienced those feelings over the last few years. But like you, I recognized that I needed to start taking action. My first action was to determine what I needed to do immediately for my business. With very little revenue coming in, I looked to cut expenses everywhere. And like many, the most likely place to cut was staffing. And cut I did. It was not easy though. And I'll say in 20 years of professional experience, the day I let my people go was the only day I shed a tear over a business decision. I was saying goodbye to the people who supported my fledgling idea and were integral in getting it to the point where it was. But I had no choice. I could not risk the home where my wife and children lived to keep people around when there was no end in sight to the problems that my business was experiencing. Even with the cuts that I made though, I still went 5 months that year without a paycheck. In the process of letting people go, I learned some important lessons though, especially about the thought processes and some of the interactions between business and government. When I internalized the need that I was going to have to let people go, I called a state employment commission. and asked about the implications. What does this mean? I'm going to have employees and they're going to be going well. I spoke with a really nice woman who's more than happy to help out. I explained my situation to her. And among other things, let her know the rationale. I just don't have the money to help these people, to keep these people going. And she explained back to me that, if any of my former employees applies for unemployment, well, then I'm going to have to pay the government more money. So I went and said to her, I said, I love these people. I want to keep them around. But I can't have the money. And she said, thank you for reiterating that point to me. But yes, you're going to have to pay more money if you let those people go. So then I went through this one more time, and said, perhaps you understand, it's not that I prefer to give the government money than these people. I really don't have the money. I questioned the logic of this approach to this very nice woman. And she very politely let me know that it wasn't the employee's fault they were getting let go. So therefore, I was going to have to pay the government. Interesting. It was for me a very personal lesson about the implications of government actions and interactions with business. Now this personal experience, coupled with a high level of awareness of what's going on in DC, led me to my second set of actions. I decided I was going to get involved, or at least be heard in the political process. I found groups with common concerns and became a very active member. I also made several trips to DC to highlight the small business implications for decisions that were being considered. In these trips, I found that there were many people in Washington who were willing to listen and understand the implications of what they were considering. Even after listening, some of them still chose directions that were not in the best interest of small business, but at least they were informed. And while one person may not be able to change the outcome in these situations, I wasn't alone. We all know there's power in numbers, and I was one more person speaking up for small business. My third action is something that many small business owners have probably thought about and over the last couple of years as well. I pivoted, looking for other ways to start generating revenue. I was looking for Plan B, since Plan A was not generating the money that I needed. I believe that I found another opportunity. Those who know the industry will attest that the invention industry is filled with companies who make their money selling hope and high-priced services to prospective inventors. The vast majority of these inventors pay handsomely to these companies and don't ever make a profit on their products. So I started writing a book to equip other inventors with the knowledge they would need to bring their ideas to market, basically showing them what they needed to do and how to do it. My goal was to affordably educate those same inventors so they could achieve success on their own. And along the way, I found out that being an author is about as easy as being a small business person. So just two short years later, I finished the book. And it's now available on Amazon and through some of the largest distributors in the country. And these are just a few of the pieces of this piece of my business that I'm standing up to help these inventors. And so what started several years ago as an idea brought on by desperate times is now a revenue-generating part of my business. Over the last few years, several other things have gone relatively well. My products business picked up again late in 2009. And I've been able to continue to develop and launch new products, including the product that you have in front of you. I found ways to navigate the increasingly challenging financial environment. And I believe that my business's educational offerings for inventors will resonate for many, and that I have every expectation that it can become a profitable business unit. I've also increased my participation in pro-business groups like the National Federation of Independent Businesses and the Chamber. Through groups like these, I've been able to stay on top of issues that are relevant for my business and be engaged in the discussions so my voice is heard. Participation in these groups has also highlighted to me how fortunate we are to be in the Commonwealth of Virginia. As Secretary Chang pointed out, Virginia was recently ranked the #1 best state for business by CNBC and Polina. This included top rankings in growth, entrepreneurship, innovation, and infrastructure. Beyond those rankings, I've appreciated many of the actions taken by Virginia's elected officials. In this budget year, there was an infusion of $5 million in funding for the Virginia Small Business Financing Authority. In those same discussions, I was happy to hear the governor was proposing putting some surplus aside for future needs versus spending it now. Now, Governor, I need to warn you, if you keep taking actions like that, people are going to start confusing you as a responsible business person. Because those are so both needed and rare. Thank you. I also was fortunate I had the opportunity to hear the governor speak about a month ago. Two things struck me about what he said. While he highlighted Virginia's great rankings for business, he said that they celebrated for about a minute, then got back to work. We've all had those moments where we received those accolades and said, you know, it's time to go get a big bottle of wine and really celebrate. But we also all then get out of bed early the next morning and get back to work. So I appreciate that attitude. Additionally, the governor, the second thing that struck me about the governor's comments were that despite the fact that there are many representatives at this gathering from large businesses, he focused on the small business. And I saw this as indicative of his understanding of the importance of small business to the future economic success of the economy. The governor, for that focus, we thank you. While this focus is great, results are what we continue to need and must have. The continued uncertainty in the real estate market and slow progress in allowing prices to correct continues to undermine the bedrock of many consumers, credit and confidence. And it's this credit and confidence that drives the whole system. Additionally, insufficient access to capital is choking many businesses, keeping them from investing and expanding where they have confidence to do so. And the perpetual threat of Washington, D.C. fixing things isn't helping. Beyond those few challenges, small business confidence can be supported by keeping Virginia's relatively favorable regulatory environment and looking for opportunities to address general tax reform for Virginia small businesses. So, Governor, there's a tremendous opportunity for you to shine in the eyes of small business people. For all the small business owners, I want to encourage you to consider your role in the system as well. There's the old statement, there's no free lunches in this world, so this lunch aside, there's no free lunches, all right? First thing that we all need to be thinking about every day in operating our businesses is we need to be accountable for running our businesses in a way that doesn't encourage, highlight, or exemplify anti-business groups to get government involved in our business and or initiatives. Whether it's how we treat our employees, customers, investors, or neighbors, we need to hold ourselves to an extremely high standard. Additionally, each of us needs to determine how we can be heard in the conversation. And I'm not going to be so dramatic as to highlight Edmund Burke's quote, evil happens when good men don't take action. That's not the case. It's really a case of the squeakiest wheels getting the grease. And if we're not talking, we're going to get drowned out of the conversation. If we aren't a part of the conversation, we are going to get drowned out. And then decisions will be made on partial information or incorrect information. So whether it's through an industry-specific, local, state, or national association, you need to find a way to make your voice heard. It matters. I'd like to thank you all for taking time to hear my story and your participation in an event as important as this. I hope that each of you find tremendous ongoing success in your business. God bless and have a great day.